Hello everyone, welcome to another session of Software World with Can Dost, and I'm your host Can Dost, and today we will talk about building healthy on-call culture with Serhat. Serhat is a tech evangelist at Atlassian. Welcome Serhat, how are you?
Thank you, I'm great, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you so much. Serhat, could you talk a bit about yourself for the people who doesn't know you? Who is Serhat?
Sure. So a lot of people call me Serhat Can because of my last name when they introduced me. So this time we are lucky because we are also Turkish.
Yeah.
Maybe I assume some people also call you like Can Dost or
Yeah, exactly. Can Dost, it also
Yep.
always happens.
Yeah, exactly. When they introduced me, if they didn't ask me before, they always mispronounce my last name. So my name is Serhat Can, and I live in Turkey, and I work at Atlassian. So for the last 3 years, I work at Atlassian. Before that, I was working for Opsgenie. Then Atlassian acquired Opsgenie. So almost 5 years. I'm still with the Opsgenie team, but now under the Atlassian umbrella. So I'm doing a lot of stuff around cloud and DevOps. I'm an AWS community hero, so I speak and organize about AWS, and I'm also a co-organizer at devopsdays events, the community events that is happening all around the world, more than 80 cities. But nowadays, because of the pandemic, of course, most of them are going online, but usually they are local community-driven events. I'm also organizing DevOps Turkey and Cloud on Serverless Turkey meetups in Turkey. So I'm a technical evangelist, as you said, and I'm doing a lot of speaking, presenting, writing content as well. And before that, I was a software engineer, so mostly full stack. I was a Java developer, and I was working as a software engineer before I became a technical evangelist at Opsgenie. So for the last year, I'm an evangelist. Yeah, that's pretty much about it.
I like what does technical evangelist do?
Yeah, so a technical evangelist usually is the spokesperson for a tool or community, depends on your company. Usually, if you have a tool that is used by developers or DevOps engineers or whatever, like technical people, you usually need someone who is technical enough to explain things clearly, easily, and can present in conferences, can write content, all of the I don't want to say marketing, but because it has also community in it, but most of the time it's a combination of marketing and community, and sometimes depending on your company, it also means coding for your developer ecosystem as well. So you are basically a spokesperson for your tool or community for your developers.
Yeah, I always thought in that way from the evangelist the word, but it was a bit unclear all the time.
Yeah, and people also don't like the evangelist word because it's a religion-related word. They usually use developer advocate or developer relations as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose it. I don't know why I chose it.
That's okay. Yeah. Today our topic is on-call, and for me, it's sometimes not really clear what is on-call, and I would like to make this a bit more clear for people who's watching or listening us. So, what is on-call actually? What does it mean?
Yep. So I was on call before. Now I'm not on call, but I do a lot of speaking and writing about on call because Opsgenie is an on call management solution. So that's what we do. So on call, in basic terms, is when something is wrong with your application or with your tool, whatever you are managing, you are gonna be called. You are gonna get paged, and you need to respond in a certain amount of time, like let's say within 5 minutes, within 1 minute. So when you are on call, you need to respond to critical problems, critical incidents. That's what it means. So on call, traditionally, was the job of operations people. Usually there were people in enterprises or in companies that are looking for monitors, and if something goes wrong, their job was to respond, to try to solve the problem. If they cannot solve the problem, they call for some help, and maybe they call for a developer or another operations people to get some help. But that changed a lot in the last 10 years when DevOps got introduced. So now we see developers also getting paged when something is wrong, and that is becoming an industry standard, actually. So on-call is not an operations people concerns anymore. It's a developers concerns as well. So it is something that we all need to know nowadays. So, I mean, in Opsgenie, for example, everyone within our engineering team is on call after they get some experience, as an example.
Yeah. I didn't know that it started with I didn't even know that before that most likely, or more it was on the operation side, not in the developer side. I always thought it's with developers or engineers' responsibility. So
Yeah.
how did it change actually?
Well, so actually, when some companies misunderstand DevOps and they treat DevOps folks, if that's a thing, as the owner of all operational things. And on-call is an operational concern because when production misbehaves, or when there's something wrong with the production, usually the persons who are managing that infrastructure or that environment, they are the DevOps engineers or operations people, so they get called because they are the first ones who sees the problems. They usually do. But nowadays, we have better monitoring. We have better tools that can identify the problems much better and can send the problem to the most relevant people. And that helps us reduce the time it takes to fix the problem. That's important because companies lose millions, if not billions of dollars every year because of those incidents. So we need to shorten that time. So the one of the best solutions is to find the person who can solve the problem easily without hopping between different people. So if you can send the problem to the most relevant people in the first try, that would help you reduce time that it takes to solve the problem significantly. So that is why we are now sending these problems to developers as well. I mean, previously, most developers didn't even know that these problems existed. Like, they were writing code, they were packing it up, building it. They don't even build it. They push the code to a repository or something, a version control system, and they don't even care about the rest. And that creates a lot of problems. And the rest is actually the hardest part. And they don't even know. That is why most developers don't care about writing tests. That is why most developers don't care about monitoring dashboards, creating the right alerts, because they don't get the alerts. They don't fix the problems that they create, usually. And DevOps actually try to solve this problem. So one of the best ways is to put everyone in your company on call. And I understand that this might not work in every case, because especially in enterprises, they have these established rules, procedures, and they sometimes are hard to break. But in an ideal world, in our modern world, DevOps world, we involve our developers in on-call processes, because that helps developers understand the real pain that these operations people face with, right?
Yeah.
So to me, if you are not paging your developers as well, if your developers are not on call, you are not really doing DevOps. That's a bold statement, but I think it's important, because in the core of DevOps, our goal is to create a team that is that are the teams that are talking with each other, that are collaborating with each other. And the number one thing is they need to be able to empathize. They need to empathize with other teams. Like, they need empathy. And the best way is that they actually experience these problems themselves,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Most of the time I feel like the developers don't, I mean, you said that, I also agree that developers don't write code a lot. And also they don't think that their code is going to fail. I think that's the major problem, because everyone writes perfect code. We all know that. I mean, in codes. So since everyone writes the perfect code, they don't think even that their code is going to be broken, and everything goes well, even like the deployment and etc. These are the really painful stuff. And even though they are, I would say, automated a lot, especially during the last couple of years, the automation got really improved. And that still is a problem, and that most of the time something is getting broken on the way. And now I'm thinking, like, as an engineer, I have let's say, okay, I write the code, I pushed it, and then I'm in an on-call schedule, let's say, and I got paged. Then what happens? I mean, as an engineer, what's my responsibility? Like, what I do in this case?
So before talking about these, incident response process. So the term incident response or incident management is important here, because on call means that you are getting paged if something is wrong. All right, but there is this whole process of when there is an incident, you need to control it and eventually solve it. Right, the process starting with the page. Actually, incident response process starts before the actual incident, because you need to plan ahead and know that who is going to get paged and all that. So we need to talk about the incident management process as a whole, and it starts with planning. So one thing that I want to mention before is when we have only DevOps engineers or operations people on call, one of the biggest problems is, that's important because that changes who is going to get paged, is that when the same people get paged all the time, they get a lot of alerts and eventually they burn out. And one of the hardest job in the world is operations, becoming an operations engineer, because you're always dealing with problems and most of the time you don't know how to solve them. And when you put developers and other people in your team on call, now you distribute this, problems, and you are not, redirecting all these complex issues to the same people. So that's important. This definitely helps us, eventually things get improved because a lot of people are seeing these problems, not just 3 people who are responsible for the others. That's also important, because when there are people who are solely responsible for alerts, then nobody cares. Like, that is their job. I don't know, like, if there are thousands of alerts, I don't care. And there's downtime, I blame them, because that's their job and they're not doing their job well. But when you have more people on call, and then you reduce the chances of people getting burnout a lot, and you create more opportunities for people to improve alerting and on-call processes. That's important. So I wanted to mention before talking about the whole incident response process. So the incident response is the first thing when you get paged. So there are different stages. I mean, you can define your own stage, but usually we have these different stages defined in Atlassian's incident management handbook. So if you want something on writing, you can just type Atlassian incident management, and you are gonna see a detailed description of all these processes and everything. But you can create your own. So the first thing is triaging. I mean, triage is important. So first of all, you need to be able to define the problem. And then when you understand the problem, you can actually try to stop the bleeding. The second part is, once you understand the problem, you start working on it. And the first thing is, you don't focus on bringing your system back to a healthy state. You focus on stopping the bleeding, stopping the problem, so there is no more harm. I mean, that's the first thing. So that happened to me before. I mean, we were able to, for example, in an incident with Elasticsearch, we were so our customers were seeing different wrong information because we were sending the wrong data to Elasticsearch. So our first response, once we realized that there's a problem with Elasticsearch, was to stop the bleeding. And until that time, even when we stopped the bleeding, even when we stopped the problem, we didn't know what the problem actually is. But our first goal is to stop the problem before more people face with that problem. So you stop the problem, then if you don't understand what is causing this, you try to understand, debug, and then you bring your system into a healthy state, into the original, whatever your healthy state definition is, you bring your system to that state. So it's a process. Your goal, definitely, first of all, is to be able to try it and then stop the problem, and then actually solve the problem and bring your system into an healthy state.
I have a question.
So it's a process.
Yeah, this process. So like, okay. So when, to be able to solve the problem, and assuming that I am working in that system normally, I'm an engineer working on the system, I should be able to find my way around. But some companies, there are some engineers who doesn't work on the systems, but they are on the on-call system, and they're on call in that day. How they find their way around? I mean, they don't work in the system normally.
That's a great question. I mean, so I only mentioned the incident management process, but we didn't really talk about like how does one find these. I mean, how does they find, like, how do they know how to fix the problem, right? So companies have a lot to improve in this case. So first of all, our goal is to send the alert to the most relevant people in the first try. So, but most companies, I mean, their biggest problem is this, because they don't really have defined like keys or tags that will help these alerting tools like Opsgenie to redirect the problem to the relevant team. So most of the time, they have some like DevOps team or whatever facing the alert. Then if they cannot solve the problem, they escalate to another team. So that, in some cases, this may work. But so Google, a great example is Google. In their SRE book, they mention this. So for stable services like Google Maps, or like some services that are around forever, they have only SREs who are on call, because they only get paged like once every 3 months or so. So there is problems, like only rare problems happens. So when these things happen, they usually are related with their infrastructure, because their code is so stable. But in real world, in Google's new projects on the real world, this doesn't work that way. So we usually try to redirect the problems to the most relevant team in the first try, and that's what we did at Opsgenie as well. So when we redirect this problem to the most relevant people, the problem is some people, even though they are supposed to solve this problem, they don't know that. So that is why the first thing you need to do is a proper on-call onboarding step. That's one of the most important things. Like when you put someone on call and they don't know how to fix it, they didn't get trained properly, they're gonna have a lot of stress. They don't know how to fix the problem. They need to call for help. Maybe they don't know how to call for help. That's a big problem. That costs your company a lot of money, and also that person can burn out, and that's also gonna cost you a lot of money as well, because engineering time is our most precious asset these days.
It's also expensive for the company.
The most expensive thing actually is our engineering time. So that's also important. So one thing we can do is when we hire engineers, we first of all, we need to tell them that they're going to be on call before we hire them, because some people, it can happen, some people don't like to be on call. So we need to be clear. That's important. It can be whatever reason, but if you want your people to be on call, you need to tell them before. Then you need to have a plan to make these people ready for on call. So this starts with your first day, but you don't put people on call on their first day. So you can have different strategies. One strategy that works very well is shadowing. Shadowing is you put a new on-call engineer with an experienced on-call engineer at the same time. They're on call at the same time, usually during business hours. So on-call, by the way, can happen during business hours or outside of the business hours. During business hours is much easier to get some help. So that is why when we put people in shadow means, there is an actual on-call, then there is the new on-call engineer who are on call at the same time. So they get paged at the same time. They try to solve the problem at the same time. And the new on-call engineer learn from the experienced on-call engineer, also can ask questions. Hopefully, if they are in the same space, that's much easier. But even if they are not, they are on Slack or chatting at the same time. So that's a much easier learning for the new on-call engineers. Also, you train them, like you train your internal tools, like you give access to your monitoring tools. You teach them how to make queries, because in every different company, they have their own data structures, query languages, whatever. So you need to definitely teach them how to use those tools before you put them on call. And the last one, this is also important, you can create runbooks. Runbooks help on-call engineers to follow steps when they get an alert. You usually include that runbook onto the alert itself. So when they get an alert, they look for the runbook. Even if they don't know, they did see the problem for the first time, they know what to do. Like they, first of all, like look for that document, look for that dashboard, and see if there is a anomaly, do this, and this kind of stuff. The hardest part is to keep these runbooks up to date. But that's definitely worth it, because there is a big difference between like seeing a guideline and then seeing nothing and just the alert itself. Even if you are experienced, you sometimes forget because you don't get that alert pretty often, right? So that's also important. I was thinking one more thing. Anyway, so I can mention. So these are definitely important. Like you have an onboarding step. You can use shadowing, and you should train your people and give them access to the right tools, and you should have runbooks that will help your engineers have some guide when there is an incident.
I didn't see shadowing used that much, but I do see runbooks all the time. And as you said, keeping them up to date is the real problem, because it's another documentation, and documentation means that most of the time it's forgotten to update. However, I find them really, really useful, actually. One thing I realize also in different companies, the on-call people are still, most of the time I see there are just a handful of people are on call. I don't know who decides those people, but most of the time I see that they are just, 5, 10 people who are working maybe in SRE, maybe not.
Yep.
So maybe they just have more experience in the company. They know their way around. So that's why they are on call. But I do believe that putting people on call and training them, more people, on the on call and training them is very nice strategy. I would love to be on call. To be honest, I was never in on call, even though I developed many systems. I always thought like creating runbooks or maybe updating them, but I never thought being on call actually.
So the part is the good part is when you're on call, you learn a lot of different skills. You become a much better software engineer because you see you actually see how your code behaves on production, and you see how things works on production. That makes you a much better software engineer as well. So I know a lot of engineers get scared because they don't want to get called at 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning, and that's stressful. Believe me. I mean, I know, like I also carried my laptop and phone with me when when I go to a meetup. But I also see like our co-founder. I mean, he has to carry his laptop with him all the time, even when we go to a cafe and having a drink, and he opens his laptop and tries to solve the problem. That's stressful. And the other thing you mentioned is, if your company is smart enough, you don't count on one person a lot. So you try to divide responsibilities, divide information between different people. You create a sustainable on-call problem, so you can create a sustainable company. Because when that team, that 3 people or 5 people decides to leave, what happens, right? And also that definitely improves ownership. On-call definitely improves ownership. And if you don't think about alerting or on-call strategies like escalations or better scheduling, all that important stuff, on-call can also lead to burnout easily. So there is a thin line between ownership and burnout.
Yeah, I mean, it's so stressful because like every minute you spend with that problem is basically costing money to the company, and sometimes this cost is like thousands of dollars. And even like last month or 2 months ago or something, Google had a major outage, and I believe it cost them like millions of dollars, maybe not billions, I'm not sure. But that one, like when I think in scale, I mean, let's say not even in scale, like if companies just maybe 100 or 150 people, but not being able to serve the customers in some cases is totally scary, and it's really, really stressful. And now I'm thinking like in this stressful moment, then how do we keep this a bit healthy, let's say? Or because like when you make a mistake in that stressful moment, it is easy to make a mistake, by the way, because of the high pressure. We need to have create the culture of not blaming each other for making a mistake in the on-call as well. And we need to have this healthy environment. So what are the critical points to create this healthy environment?
Yep, that's a great question. So there are several ways. So we already mentioned distributing on-call responsibilities and not having 1 or 2 people who are on call.
Yeah.
So the other ones are that I find really useful is to definitely have clear escalation paths. Escalation is, it can mean different things in different tools on different teams, but usually escalation means is when you get an alert, you first escalation defines who is getting paged, and when there is an alert with that, let's say P1 importance, let's say the highest important alert, the most critical alert, so you page that person or that team immediately, then if you cannot reach that person, you paged another team after 5 minutes or after 2 minutes. So if you still cannot, reach, or if no one acknowledges the alert, and acknowledge means usually they're working on it, and then you page the whole team or the whole company or CTO, whatever. So you need to have clear escalation path. That definitely reduces stress, and engineers should be able to call for help or escalate the incident, the problem, to another team or another person easily. So that is why these tools like Opsgenie are really popular, because they automate these things. So you need to have clear escalation paths. Who is getting paged for which incident, and when they are not, when you cannot reach them, that can happen as well. Even if they're on call, sometimes life happens. Sure. I mean, they have an accident, whatever. They have an emergency, so you need to have paths, escalation paths that reduce stress. If you don't know, the other one is, if you don't know how to solve the problem, that can happen as well. You need to be able to get some help easily. In an ideal world, from that alert itself, like you click one button and get some help, another person joins the call with you, or another team, incident response team, gathers together in 2 minutes or whatever. So make getting some help easy, and make escalations flexible enough to get the on-call person ready when there is a problem and you cannot reach the on-call person. So the other one is, you need to be open about you need to be open and transparent about your on-call policies, and you need to let people know that the problems, these incidents, are not happening because of them. I mean, that's important. You need to give them some credits, and you need to let them know that they are not to blame when there is a problem. The problems happens either because you are not ready enough, you didn't create enough tests, checks, whatever, to be able to catch that problem. So that's not their fault, and you are not looking for a scapegoat. You are just trying to make things better. So everyone is doing their best. That's important.
That's a really good point.
And and you need to repeat that to your team. And you cannot just, once you blame someone, there is no going back. It's really hard.
Exactly.
I mean, it's important to let everyone know that basically we are a team and we are trying our best to solve this problem. We will try our best to solve this problem. And be open. I mean, what I mean by be open is, so for example, you can write what you expect from an on-call person when they're on call. That's important. I mean, if you are expecting them to carry their laptop, you need to be open and say that. And you can expect that then. Or if you, let's say, for example, let's say someone dealt with an incident during night, and then you give them like some flexibility to come work late or even skip the day off. You need to be clear about these things, because if these are things that you only say once and no one cares about these things, and even if someone deals with an incident during night and their team expects that person to come to work in the morning, then there is a problem. So you need to be clear about these things, because eventually things things get much people burn out basically. And the other one is, if you want to create this culture, is blameless postmortems or post-incident reviews. We already talked about not blaming anyone, and the usual process is, once you solve the problem during the incident management process, you are not done. You have the learning part, and that's usually one of the most important parts, because you don't want that incident to happen again. And one of the most common ways is to write a document that would list what happens and the timeline, of the incident, and how on-call person or team solve that problem, and what are some key takeaways and what are some to-dos to be able to not face that problem again. When you write that document, you don't blame anyone. Like, that person did that and this happened. It's a toxic statement, and that definitely helps no one. I mean, when people sees those things, basically you create a culture, fear of culture. I mean, and people stop, taking responsibilities because they fear making mistakes. So you cannot. No one gets any benefit from those statements. So you definitely need to be very careful about the language that you are using when you are writing those documents. And the last one that I want to mention, when you want to create a healthy on-call culture, and not the last one, there are two other ones, is alerting processes, because on-call is strictly tied with alerting.
Yeah, of course.
Right? You get alerts, and the biggest problems in many companies is that you get a lot of alerts, and most of them are useless, or most of them are repetitive. And if you don't talk about these problems, if you don't spend the time to be able to fix those alerting issues, no matter what you do, on-call is going to be a nightmare. So you need to spend some time. For example, we do have 1 hour meetings every 2 weeks just for alerting. And we meet with every on-call engineer, every on-call team every 2 weeks to be able to discuss the problems in on-call and alerting. Things like this, like you talk with your team, or for example, we let on-call engineer to spend her time with the alerting stuff during when they're on call, instead of doing development work. We like do within sprints, for example, we consider them like half the time. Like, let's say there's 40 hours in a week, we consider on-call person is going to be working on the real development issues for like half of the time, like 20 hours. And because half of the time, if there is no alert, we ask that person to do things to improve alerting, for example. These are things that can make your alerting much better, and eventually your on-call much better. And the other one is practicing, training. I mean, we already mentioned some training before becoming on-call, but it's a continuous process. What you can do is, maybe you heard the chaos engineering thing. It doesn't have to be on production. You don't have to create problems on production. You can do this on development environment, or you don't have to do this on your environment even. What you can do is you can gather your team within a room and simulate a fun, like, fake problem, and try to simulate an instant response, so that when the same thing happens, at least they already seen some of it. That definitely helps reduce stress a lot and create a much better, much healthier on-call culture.
Yeah,
and the last one is
I just like this chaos engineering, I think, from Netflix is the extreme end of this thingy. And it's very hard to create that, actually.
Yeah, it's really hard. And now, at the last reInvent, AWS announced their own chaos engineering tool. I don't know if they released it to the public yet, but the problem is, I mean, most companies don't even have proper monitoring. They don't have proper alerting. So, I mean, it's like a dream for most companies to be able to create problems on production. I agree, but I also see the benefit, and most people just forget about the benefit and focus on the how they can use these ideas, and just skip that because they think that it's on production. It has to be on production, but you can take some ideas from chaos engineering and apply it to your team, even if you are not ready. And before, I believe that everything needs to be perfect to be able to actually do some chaos engineering. But now I do believe that you can take some bits and apply, and then improve gradually. I mean, you don't have to do everything perfect in one time. The agile thing, DevOps thing, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So the last one I forget to mention is compensation. So if you are focusing on creating a healthy on-call culture, first of all, you need to acknowledge that your on-call engineers, if they're on call outside of business hours, they don't have to be on call for free because they're not your slaves, whatever, right? And most companies skip that. So in Europe, they are protected by law. Exactly. Usually in Switzerland, in Germany, in developed countries, there are laws that protect on-call people. In US, in United States, they're also developed, but they don't dare, because of capitalism probably. They don't really protect on-call people. So if company doesn't want to pay for on-call, they don't. But most of them still pays because IT people are really valuable there. In Turkey, for example, we don't have any rules. Like you can ask people to be on call and you don't pay them anything. That's okay. So one thing that I would suggest is definitely don't pay for paper alert. That can create different problems, right? People can create their own alerts. So what you can do is you can pay for a week of on call. Like even if there's no alert, you can pay for that, because even if they're not getting paid, the on call thing itself is stressful because you are expecting, you are always available, even if you're not getting alert. That means something. That there is, by the way, research about this in Hamburg University, by the way. So I memorized this because I repeated this all the time in my presentations, right? So the study shows that there is a increased amount of stress, the cortisol level increase when someone is on call, even if there is no alert. That's important. They actually collected cortisol level samples from the body, and they measured this. So even if people are not getting alerts, when they're on call, it's stressful and you need to pay for it.
It is a bit you mean you need to carry your laptop even if you go to somewhere. So you cannot really plan your life without your computer in that case. Even though, you want to go running, for example, if you're on call, but somehow you need to manage to be able to get to home in a really quick way, maybe in 5 minutes. I don't know, depending on the alerting system setup. Sometimes alerting in our company, for example, as far as I know, it's like sometimes for some alerts is 15 minutes. So if you're running around your house only, then it's okay that you can get home in 15 minutes. But it's so stressful job. So it of course it requires the compensation, the payment. And I think even as far as I know, in Europe, the companies cover this, also have to do this by law. And the separation is that even if you are on call and if you get paid, then you get more money. And if you don't get paid, you get just less money, just to be safe. That's good, I think.
That depends on the company. So even if you don't pay for on call, you can do different things. Like, for example, before we were doing, like, if you're on call for 1 week, you get a day off the next following week. So that's also a good, that's a good incentive as well. If you want to, compensation doesn't have to be money. So you can do things like that. So what you mentioned is, we didn't mention that, but we need to give some flexibility. Like if you have something important, you need to be able to ask your teammates to cover that shift for you, and so you can cover their shift later. Maybe these flexibilities should exist, because we don't know if
it's like
that person is free or available. Exactly. These things should be flexible as well. So.
Last thing I want to talk about actually is the postmortem analysis. We talked about postmortems a little bit, and one thing I'm more curious about is that basically you write a document after you solve the incident to be able to learn what went wrong and maybe reflect and or solve the core problems to not see them again. And one way is writing postmortem analysis documents to define the real problem or the steps happened during the alerts or the failure of the system. And generally, what I'm curious about is that when I read our postmortem analysis documents, I see the timestamps and every action taking on there. And I was always curious, like, if I'm an engineer on call, like, do I write as a, like, on the paper on the side that, okay, the time is this, I'm doing this, and etc., like step by step, or like how these documents are formed? And another one, like related to that one, how can we make sure that they are not documents that nobody reads again?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in many companies, there are documents that nobody reads again, and they don't care about that. So the thing starts with creating a culture around like solving actual problems and not just writing them. So that's important. That's a hard one. But so the postmortem is the post-incident review, whatever you want to call post-incident analysis or whatever. The most important thing is, and there is research about this as well, you need to write it within the following 1 or 2 days. You don't want to wait for 2 weeks to write that postmortem. And a lot of the time, engineers like delay. And that happens to any of us. That's a basic human like reaction to anything mandatory. But people forget about things. So if you don't want to forget important details, you need to write the postmortem. The best way is right after the incident, or within the next 1 or 2 days. You don't put like 1 week. You don't wait for 1 week to be able to write the postmortem.
You won't be able to recall what's happened, I guess.
Exactly. You miss important details. So the other thing is, if you have a tool like Opsini, if you get your incidents through a automation tool, then you actually have a record of some things, like the timeline of things, right? And if, let's say, hopefully you have some monitoring, and you also, if there is a side effect, like if some other service is affected, or if there is another alert related to that incident, you have everything in one view. So you can actually create an postmortem timeline or postmortem document automatically using those tools. Even if you don't want to use a tool for postmortem, you can do like Google Docs, whatever. You can still take a look at the timeline, who got paged, who were involved, whatever, from that tool. That definitely helps as well, because stressful times are stressful times. You're going to forget whatever, some important details, even though you are writing right after. So you want to automate things through these tools, because those are like your proofs, your let's say recordings of these critical incidents, and these are going to cost you, these incidents cost you money, so those details definitely matters, right? And so the other one is like the language we already mentioned, being the blameless part. So if you're not sure about something, that's a golden rule, don't write it, right? If you are suspecting like it might be blameful, like if you are blaming someone, you are probably blaming someone. Think that way. And the other good practice is you also ask for your teammate, someone else, to review that document before you publish that to your entire team or company. That's also a good practice. That's a good practice for any writing, like blog post, whatever. But you can apply these practices to postmortem, post-incident reviews as well. And the other one is like the to-do items. there are some people who are telling that a postmortem is not over until an incident response or incident management process is not over until you close those to-do items. But I think that's tricky because sometimes you plan ahead and you put that issue after 3 sprints. That can happen depending on priorities. So what you can do is you can create Jira tickets, whatever tool you're using, to track those issues, not just write them on the postmortem. That definitely helps. So because product managers or teams review those backlogs eventually. If they're important, there's a bug or there's something that needs to be fixed soon, you prioritize that issue. That definitely helps. So other than that, it definitely depends on the team to actually care about those items, but they definitely should care about those items. Jenny asked something, should they be part of the process? Who
Postmortems, I think,
should be part of?
what Jenny asks.
Oh yeah, incident management process, of course. Even if you start with planning, you continue with triaging, defining, trying to understand the problem. Then you stop the bleeding, as I mentioned. I couldn't remember the exact term, but that's on the Atlassian incident management handbook. Then you resolve the issue, you fix the problems and bring back your system into health state. Then you write the postmortem. In some cases, they also had another part and at the solve the to-do items, but I don't think that's a good practice.
Yeah. For I would say, for one thing, one of your sentences just stuck with me at the moment. It's if you think you're blaming someone, then you are blaming most probably. I think this is a key takeaway from building this blameless culture and keeping that in mind in general without this having on-call I think it's a really good practice. And that's definitely, it will stay in my head for a really long time.
And that you can apply that to other things as well, right? If you are writing something and you are thinking that could be some sort of can be misunderstood in some way, you probably are doing it and you need to be more careful.
Exactly. Our time is ending, and I really enjoy this talk. And last thing I want to ask is, do you have a shout out, something or someone that you would like to appreciate in front of others?
So let me think. Sure. So nowadays I'm working alone, so I don't really have a coworker. So within our community, a lot of good people are doing a lot of good things. And thank you, by the way, for doing these things. I know that spending your time outside of your work is hard. It's also helpful in many ways. I've seen a lot of. I've met with a lot of great people through that way as well. But that's hard work because we are already working hard. So I would like to thank you and thank our team at Cloud and Serverless Turkey, because they are really we are meeting every week with them and creating great content for our community. And that's a hard work that doesn't really pay off in at least money.
Exactly. I really appreciate the all content creators and also the community managers, community members. Doesn't matter if you're involving in the community. I think that would be my shout out too. So if you are a member of community, I appreciate what you are doing. Doesn't matter what you are doing in the community.
Exactly. And especially during these times, because as the community managers, community people, we like to meet with people. We like to engage in conversations, and doing things online, they are a bit odd. Being in person in some place definitely helps at least me to build a better human connection. So I miss those days, but still these things definitely helps as well. So I met with you, so
Same
that's a
here.
great thing. And you are in Germany, so we couldn't meet like in person.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining, and I really appreciate. I really enjoyed this talk, and thank you for your time being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. And for our listeners or watchers, thanks a lot for your time as well. And if you have any questions or anything, you can reach me out all the time via Superpeer or Twitter. It doesn't matter. And if you are watching this later on, then you will find everything related to the contact points for Serhat and me in the description. And thanks again. See you everyone next week. Bye-bye.